Hey guys, Tyler here. It's time for a reaction video. This came out like a couple days ago, but never had time to do it, so let's do it.
Audrey was in love with the world he created, and he got really into it. He used this series as a vessel to introduce readers to real railways in the UK, with many of the characters having real-life counterparts that you can go and still see today. The series transformed over time from simple bedtime stories for children to a real-life world.
His son had the measles when he was 3.
Island network with a history that coincided with real events in history. Both world wars happened in Thomas, people. Wilbur and his brother George worked on several maps of the island of Sodor, adding new developments to it over time and making sure every town and every railway line and every landmark had a purpose.
Every town? Oh, so it's in between. It's near my. It's in between. So it's between Man and England.
We're going to cover all of it.
Okay, Isle of Man is famous for one thing.
From the CGI series to David Mitten's official map of Sodor, to my own totally headcanon map. But there's one that I never covered. The official one. Yeah, the one drawn up by the creator himself, Wilbur Awdry. I have had so many people ask me in video comments and in the Patreon Q&As if I'd ever do a video on Awdry's Sodor. And honestly, the idea never really sounded too appealing to me. To me, the fun of the other map videos was that they were all headcanon, using bits and clues from the show to piece together logical placements of everything. It was like putting together a puzzle. Whereas Awdry's, there is nothing to figure out. It's all here, and everything has an explanation and a history to it.
So it's between Man and London.
I thought it might be fun to change it up a little bit this time, and actually dive into the histories of all the towns and locations as we go through them. I'd say about 90% of the information in this video is straight from the Island of Sodor book, a huge 150 plus page lore book written directly by Awdry himself.
Damn!
The remaining 10% or so coming from other lore books, Awdry's own hand-drawn maps and layouts, his lectures, and even just info stated in the stories themselves. So, don't think of this as just a Sodor map video. This is a history of Sodor, a visual presentation of the Island of Sodor book, using the map and illustrations for context. Awdry has drawn several maps of Sodor over the years, but the most up-to-date one is the one from 1992. We will be using the absolutely beautiful HD recreation of it by 01 Salty, which I've used in several videos in the past. Link to his work is in the description. I should mention that not everything will be covered here. Like, I'll cover every location, but I'm not going to dive deep into, like, the religious background of Crosby, or give you all the histories of the different kings of Sodor in the 11th century. This is meant to be a digestible video.
It's the cities.
It's not a book. So I'm going to try and keep things concise and snappy. All of that additional info is in the book itself, and I highly recommend giving it a read if you want more. The answers to everything you could possibly want to know.
Hey, there's a game called City Skylines. You can make your own cities and
so like
stuff.
We always do in these videos, we're going to follow the railway to get from place to place. So naturally, we'll start with the main line.
One goes from London to... How big is the Island of Sodor is the question.
Only 5 bucks muppetry.
The news will be on it. I'm not going to watch all this. Let's watch part of it. What time is it anyways? I don't even know what time it even is. I know, Ty. Your cell phone right here, Tyler. Tell me what time it is. Because one clock says one time, the other clock says another time. Oh, that clock is stopped. Okay.
The main railway on Sodor is called the Northwestern Railway, and it came to be in 1914. Its main line formed, connecting the 3 individual railways on Sodor that preceded it. The western half is made up of tracks and stations that were put in place by the Tidmouth, Knapford and Elsbridge Light Railway and the Wellsworth and Suttery Railway. And the eastern half is largely made up of the routes put in place by the ambitious, but ill-fated, Sodor and Mainland Railway. The 3 railways were connected with a through line in the center of the island, passing through Maron, Cronk, and Kildane. A tunnel was bored through the Ballyhoo Ridge, and a rolling bridge was erected across the Walney Channel, so the island could reach the mainland finally by rail. There have been many extensions and branch lines and additions to the railway since its grand opening over 100 years ago, but for now we're going to focus on the main line as it stands in current day. So as we always do in these videos, we'll start on the west side of Sodor at the beginning of the main line. Tidmouth. Tidmouth is a port, a town, and home of the Northwestern Railway's main headquarters. Tidmouth has a great sheltered deepwater harbor, and is the main source of shipping to the island. It wasn't always like this, though. Prior to the 18th century, Tidmouth was on the far side of the island that wasn't accessible to traffic coming from the mainland, being hidden by the deep valley of Tid, with cliffs so steep that only footpaths to this day exist on it. Until the railways and the harbor were built, the only way of getting to Tidmouth via land was by foot or on horseback.
Or horses.
There was an attempt by the Elsbridge and Knapford Railway in 1905 to extend rails to Tidmouth by building a tramway around the headlands to the harbor. These tracks were destroyed in a storm in 1908, however, leaving Tidmouth again unreachable, and left many miners out of work. Under the direction of Topham Hatt I, these miners went to work boring a tunnel through the South Ridge to create a direct rail line from Knapford to Tidmouth. With this tunnel, the Tidmouth, Knapford, and Elsbridge Light Railway was formed, and Tidmouth was now successfully connected to the outside world. The first train ran through the completed tunnel to Tidmouth on July 5, 1910. With this new rail access, Tidmouth's potential as a harbor was soon realized, and the town around it has grown exponentially. Quickly it became the island's main port of call. It's no wonder the Northwestern Railway decided to move its main headquarters here in 1925, with its main line and two branches meeting here, and the harbor adjacent to the station. It's where all the action is. The main line terminates here, with a grand 5-platform glass-roofed canopy station. Adjacent from the station building is Tidmouth Sheds.
I thought it was
where the
Knapford.
engines are all housed and fueled. The shed itself has developed quite a bit since it was first built. It was originally a 4-road shed, but by December 1952, it had been extended with a large indoor roundhouse behind it and a carriage shed beside it. Starting our journey along the main line, the first landmark we'll pass is the South Tidmouth Tunnel. The tunnel was first built in 1910. And was significant in allowing the first successful railway line to reach Tidmouth. The tunnel was originally a single bore, but gained a second in 1916 so the Northwestern Railway could operate up and down trains simultaneously. This is the tunnel an elephant from the circus once hid in, and Henry was sent to push it out. In James and the Top Hat, James and Edward stopped at an unnamed station after departing Tidmouth, and before meeting Thomas at Knapford Junction. This was well before all of Sodor had been figured out, and the station has been officially retconned since, but it would have appeared somewhere around here. Speaking of retcons from that same book, in James and the Express, Gordon mentions getting flipped around at the ever-elusive loop.
I was switched off the main line onto the loop. I had to go all round and back again.
Again, this book was written before all of Sodor's map was figured out, and the Northwestern Railway having a loop line has since been retconned. After the tunnel, we reach the town of Knapford. Knapford is, well, kind of a shithole. The area is an...
I thought Knapford is where the headquarters is. I thought Knapford's like the headquarters where the main station is. But Knapford's a shithole, I don't know why. You like to say Knapford? Two engines on your fleet. This island's so big. Well, you will have 2 engines on your railway. It's not enough anymore. I have enough engines. You have enough engines.
Estuary for the River Els and prone to annual flooding.
Oh, that's what
These floods have left the whole area a thick marsh land. In the 1880s, A.W. Dry and Company built embankments and drained part of the land. and it is atop these embankments that the current-day town and railway line rest on. These are protected by tide gates that control the floods.
Levees?
The rest of the area is bare marshland, with no roads or buildings. Not many people choose to come to Knapford on holiday. However, when the weather is sunny, its warm ocean beaches are worth a visit.
You told me
The
there's
station here is the junction for Thomas's branch line, and Thomas often waits here for his connections. Passengers can disembark and travel up his line to the countryside of Farquhar. The station, however, is the third on the site. The original station is at the harbor below. We'll get to that later. And the second, on the now main line, was built south of the river.
You little
The
rat.
current one, built in 1956, was erected during Sir Charles Hatt's redevelopment of Knapford Harbor. The branch was reconfigured to join with the main line north of the river.
Woo!
The 1971 map of Sodor incorrectly depicts Knapford as the end of the main line instead of Tidmouth. And I like to believe this error is why Knapford became the location of the big station in the TV series. A bridge carries the main
Knapford
line
makes
over
more sense.
the River Ells and the harbor below.
So
And
Knapford's like,
just south of that is the site of the old Knapford Junction. This was the station built during the Tidmouth, Knapford, and Elsbridge railway days, and became a part of the Northwestern when all the island's railways amalgamated. This is the station we see in the books until the 8 famous engines, when the new one was finally in use. This station is now abandoned, and has likely been demolished. Next up is Crosby Tunnel. The tunnel was bored by the Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway in 1912, following their agreement to link up with the Tidmouth, Knapford, and Elsbridge Railway. It, like the Tidmouth Tunnel, was originally single track, and was widened for a double track in 1915 when the Northwestern Railway formed. This is the tunnel Edward disappeared into when Bertie first tried to catch him in Bertie's Chase. The tunnel appears in the Famous Engines activity book from 1976, in which it is illustrated with a castellated portal. The tunnel, as depicted here, is based on the design of the real-life Clayton Tunnel in West Sussex.
oh,
We come up.
okay. So based off the tunnel and stuff.
Come out of the tunnel and run alongside the coast for a stretch. According to the Island of Sodor book, Edward's incident with the cows occurred on this stretch 2 miles west of the station. Remember this. The next
2 miles
station
from Crosby?
is Crosby, originally spelt as Crosby on the 1958 map. Crosby gets its name from the remarkable stone cross that stands on a mound in the town's churchyard. It is unique to the island, and dates back to the early 11th century when the revival of Christianity on the island began to take hold. There is a yard beside the station, and it was in this yard that poor Duck, propelled by a runaway train coming down Gordon's Hill, crashed into a barber shop. According to the 58 map, Crosby is also the station that Gordon nearly ran into Percy in Percy
Oh.
Runs Away, though this has been since retconned to be the yard beside the old Knapford Junction. Just beyond the station is a road bridge that crosses the main line. It was on this bridge that Henry famously sneezed at some naughty boys ready to drop stones on his train. Croc's scrapyard is on the south of the main line, with sidings for trains. Scrap is broken into pieces and loaded into railway wagons here, to be taken abroad for smelting. It was at this scrapyard that Edward first met Trevor, who was left here to be broken up. 1.5 miles east of Crosby Station is the stretch of track that James derailed and landed in a cow field. Interestingly, according to the 58 map, the cow field that James crashed into on his first day was on the west of Crosby Station, but has since been retconned in the Island of Sodor book.
So it's in.
The
So
main line passes
still
the
Crosby.
old nunnery, then St. Tibba's Hospital, and crosses the River Ray before approaching Wellsworth. The main
Okay.
line, traveling east, as per Audrey's drawings of Wellsworth Yard as provided by the Tallyclin Railway, shows it entering the station first. The station is often dubbed as Edward's Station, for it is the junction for his branch line. There is a bay platform on the north side for trains coming up from or to the branch. Just like the TV series, the direction the station faces is often inconsistent in the illustrations, such as this one of Duck during his famous runaway. He should be facing the other direction heading towards Crosby. The station and the yard are separated by a road bridge. On the west side of the yard are sidings, and on the east side, some engine sheds and the siding the breakdown train is stored on. The text in Thomas and the Trucks does state that Thomas, traveling west from Vickerstown, rushed through the station first and then swerved into the goods yard. However, this has since been retconned by Audrey's track plan. Wellsworth gets its name from a well, now dry, in the grounds of the old nunnery. Wellsworth is a pleasant seaside town, with air that is reputedly pure and bracing, and many of the island's doctors recommend their patients suffering from respiratory problems to come here to be cured. Topham Hatt I lived in Wellsworth, and came here every morning to catch his train to work. For a short stint in 1925, Thomas lived at the goods yard at Wellsworth Shunting, before being permanently relocated to his branch line. It was also in this yard that James collided with tar tankers in 1951.
Okay.
The junction to Edwards Branch is further down the line. Continuing straight along the main line takes us under a road bridge that marks the base of Gordon's Hill. Gordon's Hill is the steepest grade of railway track on the Northwestern Railway. The next station, Meron, is some 280 feet higher than Suttery Junction. So for a straight 5 miles, the line treks a 1 in 75 gradient. This hill has proved a testing ground for the railway's engines. Gordon was the first engine to famously stall here with a goods train in 1923, and ever since then, it's been nicknamed Gordon's Hill. Unlike the TV series, there is no immediate descent once you reach the peak. Instead, this is where Meron Station is situated. After this, the descent down the other side is far more gradual, stretched over miles of the main line, with a less severe gradient. All trains that have run away on the hill over the years have been traveling west, coming from Vickerstown and going down the descent. At the top of the hill lies a bridge crossing the river Mara, and then the town of Meron. There is some debated explanations on where the name Meron originates from. The most basic explanation is that it gets its name from it overlooking the river Mara. But the more generally accepted one is that the Church of Meron is dedicated to the real-life 6th century saint, Saint Ronan, or Ma Ronan in ancient Sudric. So more simply, Meron.
Okay.
Meron only gained a railway station in 1915 when the Northwestern Railway formed. The station has since become a necessary stop for unfitted goods trains to check their brakes heading west before they reach the descent down Gordon's Hill. All banker engines pushing trains up the hill stop at Meron and use the station crossover points to run back to Wellsworth. It was in the station yard at Meron that some naughty boys meddled with James's controls and sent him eastward along the main line without a driver. Percy, after running away, also came to a stop at Meron in a siding near the signal box. Illustrations here depict Meron by the sea, with the ocean shore on the north side, which is, of course, inaccurate. The main line then crosses over an impressive curved viaduct. Built by the Northwestern in
Kronk.
1915,
Oh, so that's what Kronk
carries
is.
the railway over the road and the river.
Kronk
on
Abbey is
top.
supposed to be connected.
It was on this viaduct that Gordon lost his dome
Okay.
and domeless engine.
Okay, now they also got Kronk and Meron being together. I made a video a few months ago, guys, where I did Thomas the Tank Engine, but I had 3 roads. I had one road called Kronk, one road called Kronk, Maryland, and one road just called Kronk Abbey or something, I don't remember. But yeah, I'm going to redo my video again later.
Extensive restoration work to the viaduct's arches in 1985 caused significant delays for all of the Northwestern, as trains had to travel slowly across it, delaying all subsequent
Kronk
connections.
Abbey and
The next
Abbey
stop
Kronk.
is Kronk. The town's full name is, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Kronkny Braid.
I just call it
Sudric
Kronk.
for the hill in the valley. But no one has time to say all that.
So it's called
The
Kronk.
first king of an independent Sodor, King Sigmund, resided in Kronk and built his castle here. The ruins of Sigmund's castle remain on the hillside of the valley, which commands a welcoming entrance to the heart of Sodor. Kronk nowadays has a bustling town center. It has no one big employer, but it does export malt. It is an ideal
Malt?
place for Sodor tourists to stay, being in the center of the island and boasting plenty of hotels. In the earlier books, Kronk looked like this, and served as inspiration for Lower Tidmouth in the TV series. Edward waited for his guard here, and James surprised an old lady on the platform here with his hiccups. The station changed a bit in appearance by enterprising engines, it now having an island platform and some sidings.
What's my
On
train?
Audrey's own layout, the timetable showed that many services terminated at Kronk, it being the middle point of the main line. So
Okay.
it likely has an engine shed and locomotive facilities here. Henry's super rescue venture ended at Kronk, and Flying Scotsman, waiting in the yard, took over the train.
So Kronk Kronk's like a halfway point. Okay, makes sense. If I own my own rail line, who knows? So Kronk's like a halfway point. Okay.
The main line continues its gradual descent, crossing the main road via a bridge. It was at this bridge that Gordon was halted by a lorry ablaze, and then helped put out the flames. After the bridge, we enter the town of Kildane. Kildane is a town with some interesting history.
Really?
Its name comes from, and again, I apologize for this, Keel-e-Degan, I think. Subject
Oh,
for
so they-
Search of the Devil.
So they mentioned.
Possibly in allusion to the unexplained
Okay, so they shortened the name to Kildane to make it easier. As the recording this came out 3 days ago, so yeah, that's pretty neat.
ominous standing stones on a plateau above the town.
Okay.
There is no factual explanation for why the standing stones exist or how they even got there, but they are likely burial sites
So
from
Stonehenge?
the Neolithic period.
So
Once
Stonehenge.
underground tombs and unearthed by erosion over time.
It's like a Stonehenge kind
Once a
of.
small village, Kildane has become a bustling suburb of Kronk. It serves now as a junction to the electrified Peel-Godred branch line, with the station serving hourly trains. When the Arlesdale Railway was opened in 1967, a ballast processing plant was established at Kildane, where ballast is then distributed into trains to be taken elsewhere on the island and abroad by British Rail. In 1977, a motor rail terminal was opened, so people could have their cars transported to the mainland on holiday with them, and vice versa.
Oh, that's kind of cute.
Kildane is the station that Toby tried to take on water while traveling to the works in Doubleheader. And it was here, just before the station, that Henry, while pulling the Flying Kipper, had his famous crash in 1935.
Oh.
After Kildane is a long stretch of main line. The line crosses over the main road connecting the villages of Balladrin and Killabon and the Hawan-Russell River via one arched bridge. It was on this bridge that Henry and Gordon were halted by Bluebell the cow in Cows. So remember how I said to remember where Edward lost his train to the cows earlier? All the way back before Crosby? Yeah, Bluebell really wandered far east, didn't she? The line continues for a long ways through the countryside.
Long walk for a kitty cow.
It was on
Big
this
cow.
long stretch that Edward chased a runaway James down in Old Iron. Toby also ran out of water on this stretch, and Donald and Douglas rescued a stuck Henry in a snowdrift out here. A road bridge travels across the main line. We link up with the branch to Kirk Ronan, cross over the river Hawan-Croka, and begin our approach to Kelsthorpe Road. The station for the town of Kelsthorpe is inconveniently 2.5 miles south of the town, placed where the railway crosses the road. Hence its name, Kelsthorpe Road. Kelsthorpe gets its name from
That has to
Thorkel of
suck.
Norwich,
2 miles
who
away.
marched his men to Sodor
So there must be
in
a like a
1067.
butt. So
They were granted land here in return for their defense of the...
so does that mean that there's like a bus or a? So that means like there must be a bus then. It takes them from Kelsthorpe to the community. Then there has to be some kind of like a bus or a taxi that you take from Kelsthorpe to the station. If you don't want to walk the 2 miles,
island.
might be a
And
bus.
here, Thorkel raised his castle. Thorkel's descendants, the Kelson family, still live here. The station serves as the junction for the Kirk Ronan branch line. The events of Super Rescue began at Kelsthorpe.
So Kelsthorpe must have a
when
car.
the
Or must have a bus
line
line.
broke down on the crossing just after the station, traveling west. About a mile east of the station is where James had his infamous bootlace affair. Finally, we reach Crovan's Gate, everyone's favorite station, as this is the transfer for the Skarloey Railway. But I'll talk about that later. Let's talk about the really interesting stuff.
We're only gonna make some money. Only wait this afternoon. I'm gonna do it later on today. I'm gonna do that. I got so many videos uploaded, it's not even fucking funny.
Crovan's Gate was the site of a bloodbath. I'm serious. You see, the town gets its name for its once narrow pass, which has been widened by roads and railways since. For centuries, this pass was the only practical route from the east of Sodor into the interior. Back in the early 11th century, the real-life King Godred Crovan, with his some 300 men, held 4,000 invading Normans at bay here, until feigning retreat and leading them through the pass straight into a trap of Godred's waiting army. The 4,000 Normans were massacred here.
That's why I don't get a
Since
politics or
then,
religion.
The passage was known as Crovan's Gate. All of this bloody lore in what is a book series about talking trains for kids. I love it.
I hate
After
it.
the Northwestern Railway formed, they established their main works here in 1915. The works has expanded quite a bit since then. With the decline of steam on the mainland, the works is now well equipped with the machinery to tackle any sort of steam engine overhaul. All engine repairs
Oh, so
on all
that's-
the railways on Sodor, the Northwestern, the Scarlet Rail.
So actually, that's where Crovan's Gate is. So Crovan's Gate's actually on the island. I thought Crovan's... That's good to know. I thought Crovan's Gate was on the mainland. That's pretty... So Crovan's Gate's actually on Sodor. That's good to know, because I thought Crovan's Gate was on the mainland. So, that makes sense
The
now.
way the Coldy fell, everything is all handled here in-house.
That's good to know.
After passing the works, we go through the pass where the bloody battle of Crovan's Gate occurred. The line diverts off the branch to Ballahoo. These tracks were put in place by the old Sodor Mainland Railway. The Sodor Mainland had wanted to extend north to the mainland, hence their name, but they went bankrupt before it could happen, and only got as far as Ballahoo. When the Northwestern formed in 1914, Ballahoo became a mainline station. However, a bypass line was constructed in 1933 to create a more direct path from Vickerstown to Crovan's Gate, making Ballahoo a part of a branch line. The Wild Nor'Wester and the limited services used the bypass line mainly, though all other services traveling the entire main line still stop at Ballahoo, however. The branch was extended to the fishing town of Norrumby in 1915, and was regularly jointly operated by the LMS, and now by British Rail, on the mainland. Going back to the main line, the line travels north at the junction and crosses the River Hoo via the Ballahoo Bridge,
The River
about
Hoo.
2 miles west of Ballahoo. It was around here that James's filler cap froze over in deep freeze and had to be rescued by the works diesel. North of the Ballahoo branch joins at the main line again.
Oh, Henry's
before
Tunnel.
Approaching Henry's Tunnel. A single-line tunnel was bored in this ridge in 1915, in a time when speed and cheapness was paramount to getting the newly formed Northwestern Railway running. The up and down lines of the main line were gauntleted through the single tunnel, meaning only one train at a time could traverse it. The illustrations of the tunnel in The Sad Story of Henry are inaccurate, as it didn't gain a second bore till much later. During the tunnel's construction, a midway section collapsed, leaving a gap and creating 2 separate tunnels.
Oh.
Henry famously stopped in the tunnel in 1922 when he didn't want to work in the rain. This wouldn't normally cause such a problem, but since the tracks were gauntleted, Henry was blocking all traffic from either direction. Try as they might, Topham Hatt I and his crew could not make him move. So they did the only sensible thing. They walled Henry up and spent hundreds of hours and God knows how much money to bore a second tunnel. You know, typical Sodor logic. Henry was let out eventually, and the tunnel has ever since been nicknamed Henry's Tunnel. Since then, the tunnel has always
So Henry
had
owns a
2
forest
doors,
and a tunnel.
Up and down trains can now pass each other with ease. We finally
So Henry owns a
reached
forest.
Vickerstown, the final
So Henry owns a
stop on the
forest and a
island of
tunnel.
Sodor. Contrary to popular belief, Vickerstown is a real place. The island of Sodor is positioned where the real-life Isle of Walney is. A road bridge from the mainland to the island is here, and the town it touches is Vickerstown, albeit spelled differently. When
Wow.
it was new, the line ended here, and Vickerstown was the railway's main headquarters and terminus. The station throat is greeted by a signal box, the one that Thomas was stopped at when he pulled his first train. There was a big canopy station here, and a big engine shed. Thomas was the station pilot at Vickerstown for some time, until he finally escaped in 1925 with a goods train to Wellsworth. In 1925, the Northwestern made an agreement with the LMS, They would be allowed to run Sodor trains across the rolling bridge to the mainland if the LMS could run trains to Normanby. And the Northwestern gave up some of its steamboat services here that rivaled the LMS. Once this deal went forward, Vickerstown was no longer a terminus station, and the loss of their steamboat services initiated the Northwestern moving its headquarters to the other end of the line, at Tidmouth. The engine sheds were no longer needed here, nor the turntable, and they were all eventually taken up. Prior to the turntable's removal, Gordon was being spun around here in 1952 when he overshot the table and tumbled into a ditch. The station itself eventually downsized massively, once being a grand 4-platform canopy station, now a 3-platform station with its glass roof gone. The main line leaves Sodor and reaches the mainland via the rolling bridge over the real-life Walney Channel. There was an attempt to build a bridge here by the Sodor Mainland Railway in the 1850s, though it ended in disaster, just like everything the old S&M tried to do. The foundations were washed away by the tide, then a crane collapsed while trying to lift a span into place, and just when they almost had a finished working bridge, it was wrecked in a gale. They just couldn't catch a break. No bridge connected Sodor to England until the Northwestern Railway was formed, and they built the current rolling bridge in 1915. Beside the bridge now is the real-life Jubilee Bridge, a road bridge. This bridge was built in 1977, so prior to that, the Northwestern would ferry cars over the rolling bridge to the mainland. When the Jubilee Bridge was built, Sir Stephen Hatt saw to it that his railway was given substantial compensation for the extinguishment of their car ferrying business. Go Topham! We finally reach our final stop on the Northwestern Railway, the real-life Barrow-in-Furness. Ever since the NWR and LMS's agreement in 1925, the Northwestern has brought their trains here, and still do to this day. Engines are detached from their coaches, and a mainland engine takes the train on to wherever else. Gordon is seen at Barrow in various illustrations, notably here when he witnesses the engine coming to take over his train derail outside the station yard. In real life, there was a yard with a turntable and a shed here. The Northwestern had its own shed, and the engines would often station here until the return journeys back to Tidmouth. Percy, who was at Barrow once for some reason, posted to some mainland engines here. Douglas also found Oliver hiding in this yard in Escape. The site of the turntable and yard has since been abandoned and demolished in real life, though the Northwestern sheds likely still stand. At the very least, their turntable, as the Sodor engines would still need some way to turn around for their return journeys. Barrow's station has changed quite a bit over the years. The original station building was destroyed by Nazi Germany in 1941 during the Barrow Blitz. It has been rebuilt since, drastically changing in appearance. And there you have it, folks. The entire Northwestern Railway's main line. Everything you basically need to know about it.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you guys off to change the battery because I might have to do something in a little bit. So yeah. Yeah, I gotta do something real quick. So yeah. You're gonna stay on for a little bit longer. When it's 5 o'clock, you guys get off.
We're just getting
At 5 o'clock in 15 minutes, I have to get off.
We still have all the branches to talk about. Let's make this a little interesting and work our way back west now. We covered Ballyhoo and Normanby already, so let's talk Kirk Ronan.
I gotta make lunch.
The Kirk Ronan branch line is synonymous with the Sodor and Mainland Railway, or the S&M for short, as they laid the tracks that now make up the branch. So let's talk about their history briefly. The Sodor and Mainland was the first standard gauge railway on Sodor, being first projected in 1850 as a rail link between Barrow-in-Furness on the mainland to Sudbury, the island's capital. They managed to gain local support from various Sodor investors, promising an eventual branch up to the town of Peel Godred. The railway company officially came to be in 1853 and officially broke ground in 1861, laying a single-line track between Ballyhoo and Rolfs Castle. In 1865, the S&M built its only ever extension past Rolfs Castle to the harbour at Kirk Ronan, with hopes of establishing a steamer service from there to Dublin, Ireland.
Nah, we're
The
done.
narrow gauge Scar...
I'll do that later. Yeah.
That you
YouTube.
are happy for your son to be raised in this man's image.